In 1931, China experienced one of the deadliest natural disasters ever recorded, a catastrophic flood that changed the country forever. This was not a simple flood, but a massive deluge that submerged an area larger than England and half of Scotland combined. Millions of people were affected, entire cities were drowned for months, and the disaster unleashed waves of starvation, disease, and social collapse. While the world was distracted by the Great Depression and civil unrest, this tragedy unfolded largely in the shadows. Over the next 10 parts, we will explore 10 specific and horrifying facts about the 1931 China floods that reveal the scale and depth of this disaster's impact. Each fact tells a chilling story of human struggle and nature's overwhelming power. Get ready to discover the terrifying reality behind one of history's most devastating floods. Fact 1. The 1931 China floods destroyed 15% of the nation's wheat and rice crops. This fact reveals the massive agricultural devastation caused by the floods. In the year 1931, the Yangtze Valley, which was China's main farming region, lost about 15% of its entire wheat and rice crops to the floodwaters. This wasn't just a poor harvest, it was a catastrophic wipeout of food supplies essential for tens of millions of people. In some of the hardest hit areas, the destruction of crops was nearly total, leaving local communities without any food to harvest or sell. This caused prices for staple foods to soar, making it impossible for many families who survived the flood to afford basic necessities. The loss of these crops also destroyed the main source of income for millions, pushing many into deep debt and poverty. This fact highlights how the floods triggered an economic crisis that was as deadly as the water itself. Fact 2. The nationalist government's failure to maintain river dikes worsened the flood disaster. This fact exposes how political decisions deepened the catastrophe. In 1931, China's nationalist government was stretched thin, fighting a civil war against communist forces and facing threats from Japan. Because of these conflicts, crucial funds that should have been used to maintain and repair the river dikes protecting the Yangtze, Huai, and Yellow rivers were often redirected to military expenses. This neglect left the dikes in a fragile state, unable to withstand the heavy rains and flooding that year. When the floodwaters rose, many dikes broke catastrophically, unleashing massive waves that devastated cities and farmland. The government's failure to invest in flood control and emergency preparedness contributed to the scale of the disaster and the high death toll. This political collapse also fueled public anger and increased support for the Communist Party, which criticized the nationalists for their incompetence during the crisis. This shows how poor governance directly worsened the impact of the 1931 floods. Fact 3. Wuhan was submerged for nearly 4 months during the 1931 floods. This fact focuses on the city of Wuhan, one of China's major industrial and transportation hubs, which was underwater for an astonishing length of time. In 1931, after the Yangtze River breached its banks, the city's 3 parts, Wuchang, Hankou, and Hanyang, experienced flooding that lasted for almost 4 months. In Hankou alone, water levels rose as high as 16 meters above normal, turning streets into canals filled with sewage, debris, and even floating carcasses. Residents were forced to navigate this submerged city using makeshift rafts and, in some reported cases, empty coffins repurposed as boats. Daily life came to a halt. With shops closed, factories underwater, and transportation crippled. This prolonged inundation created horrific living conditions, leading to widespread suffering and loss. This fact highlights how the floods didn't just cause brief chaos, but trapped entire cities in water for months, amplifying the disaster's human toll. Fact 4. The 1931. Floods covered an area larger than England and half of Scotland combined. This fact reveals the staggering size of the floodwaters that swept across China. In 1931, the floods inundated roughly 180,000 square kilometers of land, an area bigger than England and half of Scotland put together. This immense flooding was not caused by a single river, but by the combined overflow of the Yangtze, Huai, and Yellow rivers, all breaking their banks at once. The disaster was triggered by a perfect storm of environmental factors: a prolonged drought, a harsh winter that left heavy snowpack, followed by an exceptionally wet spring with intense rainfall and cyclones. This rare combination caused rivers to swell beyond anything previously recorded, creating a continuous wall of water that swallowed towns, farmland, and infrastructure across vast regions. This shows how the 1931 floods were not isolated incidents, but a countrywide catastrophe of unprecedented scale. Fact 5. Over 52 million people were affected, with 30 million left homeless. This fact highlights the enormous human impact of the 1931 floods. While early government estimates suggested about 25 million people were affected, modern historians now believe the true number was closer to 52 million. Of those, approximately 30 million were left homeless, forced to survive without shelter in desperate conditions. In some areas, nearly 61% of the local population became refugees overnight, losing everything to the rising waters. For example, in the city of Wuhan alone, nearly 800,000 people were displaced when the river dikes finally broke. Tens of thousands crowded onto a narrow railway embankment, a thin strip of dry land surrounded by endless floodwaters, with little access to food, clean water, or sanitation. This reveals the staggering scale of displacement and human suffering caused by the floods. Fact 6. At least 150,000 people drowned within the first few months. This scary fact reveals the brutal and immediate deadly force of the floodwaters themselves. In the first few months after the dikes broke in 1931, field surveys estimated that at least 150,000 people drowned. One of the deadliest moments came on August 25th, when a dike near Gaoyu Lake gave way, unleashing a torrent that drowned an estimated 18,000 people in a single night. In Wuhan, when a major dike collapsed, a massive wall of water swept through parts of the city, instantly drowning around 5,000 residents. Many buildings in the affected areas were only 1 story tall, offering little chance for escape from the sudden surge. Eyewitnesses described the terror of being trapped by a fast-moving wall of water that left no time to react. This emphasizes the swift, merciless destruction caused by the floodwaters before the long-term horrors of starvation and disease set in. Fact 7. The floods triggered deadly disease, outbreaks killing hundreds of thousands. This fact uncovers the hidden killer that followed the waters: disease. After the floodwaters receded, millions of displaced people lived in overcrowded, unsanitary conditions with little access to clean water. In 1932, a cholera epidemic alone claimed over 31,000 lives in the affected regions. The stagnant waters left behind created perfect breeding grounds for mosquitoes, leading to a massive malaria outbreak that may have caused up to 300,000 deaths. Other diseases like dysentery and typhoid spread rapidly through refugee camps and flooded cities, overwhelming the limited medical resources. Disease became the deadliest threat for survivors who had escaped drowning, turning what should have been a time of recovery into ongoing tragedy. This shows that the flood's true death toll extended far beyond the initial disaster, with sickness ravaging communities long after the water dried. Fact 8. The floods caused widespread famine as crops were destroyed and planting was impossible. Fact 8 reveals how the 1931 floods devastated China's food supply beyond just the initial crop losses. The disaster destroyed the summer harvest and made it impossible for farmers to plant autumn crops, guaranteeing food shortages for months and even years to come. Survivors were forced into desperate measures, eating anything they could find, including tree bark, weeds, and even handfuls of earth, to survive. As remaining grain supplies dwindled, prices soared to levels unaffordable for most people. Millions faced starvation as the once fertile farmland was rendered useless by silt, debris, and water damage. This famine became a slow, grinding crisis that claimed countless lives and deepened the suffering caused by the floods. This fact shows that the 1931 disaster was not just about drowning, but about long-term destruction of the very land that fed millions. So, fact 9, social order broke down completely, leading to desperate acts of survival. This exposes the terrifying collapse of society in the wake of the 1931 floods. As starvation and disease spread, normal rules and morals broke down under the pressure of survival. There were documented cases where parents sold their children for money to buy food, and in some areas, wives were sold as well. The darkest and most desperate acts came when reports confirmed that some people resorted to cannibalism, eating the flesh of those who had died in the disaster. This breakdown of social order marked the deepest human tragedy beyond the physical destruction. The floodwaters didn't just drown homes and farmland, they drowned the fabric of community and trust. This shows how extreme hunger and desperation pushed people to unimaginable limits during this catastrophe. Fact 10. The death toll of the 1931 China floods reached between 3.7 and 4 million people. This fact reveals the staggering and almost incomprehensible human cost of the disaster. While some Chinese historians estimated the death toll at over 422,000, most international sources agree the final number was far higher. Official reports at the time recorded around 2 million deaths from drowning and starvation, but more recent research estimates that between 3.7 and 4 million people lost their lives due to the combined effects of drowning, starvation, and disease. To put this into perspective, that is more than the entire population of some modern megacities today. Every one of these deaths was a human life, a person with a family, hopes, and a story, cut short by nature's overwhelming force. This fact confirms that the 1931 China floods stand as one of the deadliest natural disasters of the 20th century and one of the worst in recorded history. The 1931 China floods were a disaster on a scale that is hard to fully grasp, from the immediate drowning to the long-lasting effects of famine, disease, and social collapse. This event showed how nature can completely overwhelm human society. The stories of loss and survival remind us of the fragile balance we live in and the importance of learning from history. Understanding these facts helps us honor those affected and better prepare for future disasters. What you're about to see isn't just about water, it's about power, sudden, violent, and often unstoppable. Most people imagine a tsunami as a single giant wave rolling calmly toward the shore, but the truth is far more disturbing. Tsunamis are some of the most misunderstood disasters on Earth. Born from earthquakes, landslides, or volcanic eruptions, they can travel across entire oceans faster than a commercial airliner and arrive with no warning. What makes them truly terrifying isn't just their speed or size, it's how they behave once they hit. The sea doesn't just rise, it transforms into a wall of destruction, filled with debris, force, and unpredictability. In this video, we're breaking down 10 unsettling facts about tsunamis. Facts that are real, specific, and in many cases hard to believe. Each one reveals a different side of just how destructive and deceptive these events can be. From ancient disasters lost to history, to modern catastrophes that shocked the world, each fact will change the way you look at the ocean. This isn't about fear, it's about truth. And by the end of this, you'll understand why tsunamis are not just waves, they are the ocean at its most lethal. Fact 1. In the year 1700, a tsunami crossed the entire Pacific Ocean and struck Japan, without a single person in North America reporting it. This event is known as the Cascadia Orphan Tsunami, and it's one of the most unsettling examples of how silent and invisible tsunami threats can be. On January 26th of that year, Japanese officials recorded a powerful wave hitting their coastline. Even though no local earthquake had occurred, they called it an orphan tsunami, a wave without a known origin. It wasn't until over 300 years later that scientists in North America pieced together the truth. Geological evidence, like sand layers buried inland and ghost forests of trees killed by saltwater, confirmed that a magnitude 9.0 earthquake had struck the Cascadia subduction zone off the coast of what is now Oregon and Washington. The wave traveled over 5,000 miles across the ocean before slamming into Japan. This fact is unsettling because it reveals how massive tsunamis can be completely invisible at their source, erasing witnesses, leaving no written records, and being confirmed only centuries later through geology and Japanese archives. And the Cascadia Fault is still active today, building pressure for another wave that could strike with no warning at all. Fact 2. In the year 1868, a tsunami generated by an earthquake off the coast of South America was so powerful that it hurled a fully loaded warship nearly 2 miles inland. On August 13th of that year, a magnitude 8.5 earthquake struck near the city of Arica, which at the time was part of Peru. The resulting tsunami devastated the region, with waves reaching as high as 70 feet. But the most shocking detail came from what the water carried. The USS Watery, a United States Navy gunboat weighing over 1,000 tons, was anchored in Arica's harbor when the tsunami struck. The waves lifted the ship, carried it across the land, and stranded it in the desert, almost 2 miles from the coast. It remained there for years, a bizarre symbol of nature's power to move even the largest man-made objects. This isn't a metaphor, it really happened. The tsunami also caused tens of thousands of deaths along the coast and was recorded as far away as Hawaii, New Zealand, and Australia. The displacement of the USS Watery is one of the clearest physical reminders that a tsunami isn't just water. It's force, mass, and momentum capable of reshaping the land and rewriting history in a matter of minutes. Fact 3. The deadliest tsunami ever recorded killed over 230,000 people and physically shifted the Earth's axis. On December 26th in the year 2004, a magnitude 9.1 earthquake struck off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. It was one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded, and it triggered a colossal tsunami that swept across the Indian Ocean. Waves over 100 feet high slammed into coastlines in 14 countries, reaching as far as Somalia and South Africa. But what makes this fact so unsettling isn't just the unimaginable loss of life. It's the impact the event had on the entire planet. The force of the quake was so immense that it tilted the Earth's axis by nearly 3 inches and shortened the length of a day by several microseconds. That's not speculation, NASA confirmed it. In addition to causing unprecedented destruction, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami permanently altered the geography of coastal regions, displacing millions of people and leveling entire towns. It stands as the most fatal tsunami in human history, and one of the only natural disasters powerful enough to literally move the Earth. Fact 4. The tallest tsunami wave ever recorded was not 100 or even 500 feet tall. It reached a staggering 1,720 feet, and it happened in a remote bay in Alaska. On July 9th in the year 1958, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck near Lituya Bay, a narrow fjord in southeastern Alaska. The quake triggered a massive rock slide that sent approximately 40 million cubic yards of rock crashing into the bay. That sudden impact displaced an enormous volume of water, launching what scientists now call a mega tsunami. The wave surged up the opposite side of the bay, stripping trees and soil down to bare rock up to 1,720 feet above sea level, taller than the Empire State Building. Because the area was so remote, very few people were present. 2 people were killed, but 3 others survived despite their boat being lifted hundreds of feet into the air. This is not a theoretical scenario or computer model. The destruction path carved into the mountainside is still visible today. It proves that under the right conditions, tsunamis can reach impossible heights and wipe out everything in their path, even far above sea level. Fact 5. In the year 2011, a tsunami didn't just destroy towns, it triggered one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. On March 11th, a magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck off the northeast coast of Japan, generating a tsunami that reached heights of up to 128 feet in some areas. While the quake itself caused significant damage, the tsunami delivered the most devastating blow, especially to the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The plant's seawall was designed to withstand waves up to 19 feet high. The actual wave that hit it exceeded that by a wide margin, flooding the facility and knocking out all backup generators. Without power, the plant's cooling systems failed, leading to 3 nuclear reactor meltdowns. Radioactive material was released into the atmosphere in the Pacific Ocean, forcing over 150,000 people to evacuate. This was the first time in history a tsunami directly caused a level 7 nuclear event, the highest rating possible on the International Nuclear Event Scale. The Fukushima disaster revealed a chilling truth. Even in a technologically advanced country, a tsunami can set off a chain reaction of failures that no one is fully prepared to stop. Fact 6. In the year 1771, a tsunami in Japan's Ryukyu Islands was so powerful it launched coral boulders, each weighing several tons, hundreds of yards inland, where they still sit today. On April 24th of that year, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck near Ishigaki Island. The resulting tsunami, known as the Great Yayama Tsunami, produced waves estimated at over 50 feet high. In its wake, it left destruction across the island chain, wiping out homes, rice fields, and entire communities. What makes this event particularly unsettling is the trail of coral boulders the waves ripped from the seafloor and hurled far inland. Some of these rocks weigh as much as 180 tons and were carried over 300 yards from the shoreline. Scientists have studied these boulders as physical markers of extreme wave energy, proof of just how much force a tsunami can carry beyond the visible wave. Nearly 12,000 people died as a result of the tsunami and its aftermath, But the silent boulders, still resting in grassy fields over 2 centuries later, are a haunting reminder that the sea can not only reshape coastlines, it can move the unmovable. Fact 7. On November 1st of the year 1755, a tsunami struck the city of Lisbon, Portugal during All Saints' Day, killing tens of thousands of people who had gathered for religious services. That morning, a magnitude 8.5 earthquake struck offshore in the Atlantic Ocean. The violent shaking collapsed churches, homes, and public buildings, trapping thousands inside. Fires broke out across the city, but the worst was yet to come. Roughly 40 minutes after the quake, the sea pulled back, a classic warning sign few understood at the time, before returning as 3 massive tsunami waves, some reaching nearly 100 feet high. Survivors who had fled to the waterfront for safety were suddenly swept away. In total, the combined earthquake, fires, and tsunami killed an estimated 60,000 people. What makes this fact so disturbing is the false sense of safety. People who had survived the quake and fires rushed to open areas near the harbor, only to be struck by the incoming tsunami. The Lisbon disaster remains one of the earliest documented examples of a multi-stage natural catastrophe, and a grim reminder that the danger often isn't over when the shaking stops. Fact 8. One of the most dangerous and deceptive aspects of a tsunami is that the first wave is often not the strongest, a fact that has cost countless lives. Tsunamis typically arrive in a series of waves, sometimes spaced minutes to over an hour apart, and the most destructive wave is frequently the second, third, or even fourth. This pattern was tragically demonstrated during the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, when many coastal residents survived the initial wave, only to return to the shoreline, unaware that a larger one was on the way. In some areas, the later waves were double the height of the first. People who went back to search for family members or assess damage were caught off guard and swept away. Unlike ordinary ocean waves, tsunami waves can act like a drawn-out assault, rather than a single strike. This fact is unsettling because it highlights how surviving the first impact doesn't mean you're safe. The most devastating part of a tsunami may still be minutes or even hours and once away. Misjudging that can turn survival into tragedy. Fact 9. The most deadly aspect of a tsunami isn't just the water itself. It's the destruction carried inside the wave. By the time a tsunami reaches land, it is not a clean wall of water, but a violent slurry packed with mud, shattered buildings, cars, trees, and even entire houses. This mixture turns the wave into a battering ram capable of crushing anything in its path. For example, during the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, people reported being slammed by debris flying at high speeds, causing blunt force injuries that were often more deadly than drowning. Even just 6 inches of fast-moving water can knock a person off their feet, while 2 feet of water can carry away a vehicle. As the wave surges inland, it grinds and pulverizes everything it touches. Then, as the water recedes, it drags wreckage and victims back out to sea. This brutal debris field is one reason survival during a tsunami is so difficult, making escape not just about outrunning water, but dodging deadly projectiles. Fact 10. Tsunamis don't just flood coastlines. They can permanently reshape them by causing the ground to suddenly sink or rise by several feet. During the magnitude 9.0 earthquake that triggered the 2011 Tohoku tsunami in Japan, some coastal areas experienced land subsidence of up to 5 feet, effectively lowering the shoreline and making the land permanently more vulnerable to flooding. Conversely, in other places, the ground suddenly rose by as much as 8 feet due to tectonic uplift, dramatically altering the landscape overnight. These changes don't just impact the immediate disaster scope, they affect ecosystems, farmland, and human settlements for decades. This fact is unsettling because it shows that tsunamis are not just fleeting waves, they can cause permanent geological transformations that rewrite the map and leave communities struggling with the disaster's effects long after the water has receded. Tsunamis are powerful and unpredictable forces of nature. These facts show just how much damage they can do and how little control we have over them. Understanding their power helps us stay aware and better prepared. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and respect the ocean's strength. Flash floods are among the most sudden and deadly natural disasters on Earth. Unlike slow-moving floods, they arrive with almost no warning, turning peaceful streets or dry canyons into raging rivers of destruction in minutes. These floods are caused by intense rainfall that the ground cannot absorb quickly enough. unleashing walls of water, mud, and debris that crush everything in their path. From deserts to cities, flash floods strike everywhere, leaving devastation and heartbreak behind. In this video, we will explore 10 terrifying facts about flash floods, revealing the shocking power and speed of these disasters through real events and statistics. Each fact will highlight a specific incident or truth about flash floods you need to know to understand why they are so feared. Prepare to learn about floods that destroyed entire communities overnight, trapped people in their cars, and even caused catastrophic damage in places you wouldn't expect. This countdown will show you the full force of nature's sudden fury and why flash floods demand our respect and caution. Fact 1. Flash floods can destroy entire communities in a single night. In May of 2023, heavy rains in the South Kivu province of the Democratic Republic of Congo caused rivers to swell beyond their banks overnight. Villages like Bushushu and Nonyamukubi were hit with a sudden torrent of water carrying boulders, trees, and thick mud. Over 1,200 homes were completely destroyed by the floodwaters. More than 400 people lost their lives, with thousands more reported missing. The speed and force of this flood left no time for warning or escape. This tragic event shows how quickly a flash flood can wipe out entire communities, causing devastating loss in just hours. It serves as a powerful reminder of the deadly power of sudden floods in vulnerable areas. Fact 2. Urban areas can become deadly traps during flash floods due to impermeable surfaces. On September 22, 2006, Louisville, Kentucky, faced a severe flash flood after more than 6 inches of rain fell in just a few hours. The city's drainage systems, overwhelmed by the sudden deluge, failed to handle the water runoff from streets and highways. Major roads, including Interstates 64 and 65, flooded rapidly, forcing closures and trapping vehicles. Apartment buildings were swamped, requiring the evacuation of over 100 residents from a single complex. Tragically, 6 people died during the flood, most caught inside their vehicles, as waters rose too quickly for escape. This event highlights how concrete and asphalt prevent water absorption, funneling dangerous amounts of water into urban spaces. It shows that, despite infrastructure, cities are vulnerable to flash floods and can become deadly without proper emergency responses. Fact 3. Driving through floodwaters is one of the most dangerous mistakes during flash floods. During the catastrophic floods in Kentucky in March of 1997, many fatalities were caused by people attempting to drive through rushing water. It only takes 6 inches of fast-moving water to knock a person off their feet, and as little as 1 foot of water can cause many vehicles to lose control. In that flood, nearly a dozen people drowned inside their vehicles when floodwaters swept their cars away. One tragic case involved a 16-year-old boy whose van was carried off the road by a swollen creek. Another victim was a woman whose minivan plunged into a river. Out of the 21 people who died in Kentucky during that flood, the majority were caught in their vehicles. This fact shows that floodwaters are deceptively powerful, and vehicles can quickly become death traps in flash floods. The clear message is, never drive through flooded roads. Fact 4. Flash floods can cause massive debris flows that drastically increase their destructive power. For example, during the Big Thompson Canyon flash flood in Colorado on July 31, 1976, the sudden surge carried not just water, but millions of tons of rocks, trees, and mud rushing down narrow canyons. This debris flow crushed bridges, swept away entire homes, and blocked rescue routes, turning the flood into a moving wall of destruction. The combination of fast water and heavy debris meant the flood wiped out infrastructure with far greater force than water alone could. The disaster killed 144 people and remains one of Colorado's deadliest natural catastrophes. This shows that flash floods aren't just about water. They bring destructive debris that can amplify the danger exponentially. Fact 5. Flash floods can transform calm streams into deadly torrents within minutes, leaving no time to react. On June 23, 1969, residents in Kentucky experienced the terrifying speed of flash floods firsthand. Intense rainfall from a passing storm caused local waterways to rise rapidly overnight, catching many people completely off guard. Homes were suddenly overwhelmed by fast-moving water, with some collapsing as the floodwaters surged through. Tragically, this event claimed 72 lives, many of whom were swept away while still asleep. This rapid rise happens because rain falls faster than the ground can absorb it, causing excess water to flow over land and gather speed, especially in steep terrain. What looks like a peaceful creek can quickly turn into a powerful, debris-filled river, devastating everything in its path. The swiftness of flash floods is what makes them so deadly. There is often no warning before disaster strikes. Understanding this rapid onset is crucial for survival and highlights the importance of being aware of weather conditions in flood-prone areas. Fact 6. The Kentucky flash flood on June 23, 1969, caused waterways to rise so rapidly that 72 people lost their lives in just a matter of hours. This tragic flood was triggered by an intense storm, dumping rain faster than the land could absorb, turning calm creeks into deadly torrents almost instantly. Many victims were swept away from their homes while they slept. Highlighting the rapid and lethal nature of flash floods, the sudden surge overwhelmed local rivers, causing massive destruction across multiple counties. Rescue efforts were severely hampered by the fast-moving water and debris-filled currents. This disaster remains one of the deadliest flash floods in U.S. history, illustrating how quickly flash floods can escalate and cause high death tolls. The speed of the flooding left very little time for warning or evacuation, making it especially deadly. It stands as a sobering example of how powerful and dangerous flash floods truly are. Fact 7. On April 26, 2018, a flash flood in Israel's Negev desert killed 10 pre-military academy students hiking in the Safit Canyon. This disaster showed how flash floods can strike even the driest places on Earth, where the ground is too hard and compacted to absorb sudden heavy rain. Earlier that day, a powerful storm several miles away dumped intense rainfall over the region, sending a sudden surge of water, mud, and debris rushing down the normally dry canyon. The students, 9 girls and 1 boy, were caught completely off guard as the floodwaters swept through with devastating force. Rescue teams arrived quickly but could only recover 10 of the group, with no survivors among those swept away. This event highlights that clear skies or dry surroundings do not guarantee safety. Floodwaters can gather miles away and strike without warning. The event in Safit Canyon is a haunting reminder that flash floods can occur anywhere, even deserts, and that their power is utterly relentless. It underlines the importance of monitoring weather conditions, even in areas that seem immune to flooding. The Negev Desert flood remains one of the deadliest flash flood events in the region's recent history. Fact 8. On November 25, 1967, a flash flood struck Lisbon, Portugal, killing at least 464 people, with unofficial estimates suggesting the death toll was closer to 700. This flood was caused by an unprecedented storm that dumped intense rainfall in just a few hours, overwhelming the city's drainage systems, especially in low-lying, poorer neighborhoods. Many residents were asleep when the floodwaters, carrying mud and debris, rushed through narrow streets, trapping people inside their homes. Buildings were uprooted from their foundations, and entire districts were devastated in minutes. The official death toll makes this the deadliest natural disaster in Portugal since the Great Earthquake of 1755. Due to government censorship and the rapidity of the event, many victims were never recovered or officially counted, which is why estimates vary. The Lisbon flash flood remains a stark example of how quickly urban areas can be overwhelmed by flash floods and how deadly they can be for sleeping populations. It emphasizes the need for modern, effective flood management and early warning systems even in historic cities. This tragic event continues to serve as a reminder of the lethal speed and power of flash floods in urban environments. Fact 9. Ellicott City, Maryland experienced 2 devastating 1,000-year flash floods within just 2 years on July 30th, 2016 and May 27th, 2018. The first flood dumped over 6 inches of rain in less than 3 hours, turning the historic downtown area into a raging river that swept away cars and caused 2 fatalities. Despite rebuilding efforts, the town was struck again less than 2 years later by an even more powerful flood, with over 8 inches of rain falling in a short period. This second event caused greater destruction, with buildings collapsing and vehicles tossed like toys. 1 life was lost in the second flood, and the damage was widespread. These back-to-back 1,000-year floods shattered expectations about flood frequency and highlighted the growing unpredictability of extreme weather events. Ellicott City's experience demonstrates that statistical probabilities can fail in the face of climate change and urban development. The floods serve as a grim warning that even supposedly rare flash floods can happen multiple times in a short span, putting communities at constant risk. This fact underscores the urgent need for improved flood preparedness and infrastructure in vulnerable areas. Fact 10. On the night of September 10th, 2023, the coastal city of Derna in Libya was struck by one of the deadliest flash floods in recent history, caused by the failure of 2 dams after historic rainfall from Storm Daniel. An estimated 30 million cubic meters of water were released when the dams collapsed, sending a massive wall of water, approximately 23 feet high, crashing down the Wadi Derna riverbed. Entire neighborhoods were obliterated as the flood swept away buildings, bridges, and thousands of residents. The disaster destroyed much of the city's infrastructure, leaving streets and homes unrecognizable in its wake. The final death toll is still debated, with confirmed deaths over 4,000 and estimates of missing people and fatalities reaching as high as 20,000. This flood stands as a catastrophic example of infrastructure failure combined with extreme weather events. It highlights the devastating consequences when flood defenses are overwhelmed or break. The Derna disaster is a chilling reminder of the increasing risks flash floods pose in a warming world and the urgent need for resilient infrastructure. Flash floods are some of the most sudden and destructive natural disasters on Earth, capable of turning peaceful places into deadly torrents in minutes. From deserts to cities, and from small communities to entire regions, their power is terrifying and often underestimated. The facts we've explored show just how quickly lives can be lost, homes destroyed, and landscapes forever changed. Understanding these realities is crucial for preparedness and survival. As extreme weather becomes more frequent, learning from past flash floods is more important than ever to protect ourselves and our communities.